So let's talk about this Black Christian versus Black Atheist middle ground conversation that happened on Jubilee. This was a video made a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. Has a lot of views, has a lot of interesting takes and discussions. So I'm a Mazel with Manifesting and Healing for Black people, and I saw clips of this on TikTok, which then prompted me to go actually find the video on YouTube. So first of all, I'm really glad that we are starting to have some actual intellectual dialogue regarding this, because I think it has been such a clash in the Black community for such a long time, and I think it's really a great opportunity to just sit and talk about, this dynamic between Black Christians, and I think it's anybody Black that practices anything outside of Christianity, be it atheism, Afro spirituality, anything that does not identify with Christian. I think it's really, really time that we have these conversations, and in a way where it's not like demonizing, because I think what has happened traditionally is when you're trying to have these conversations, and Black people, with us being ingrained in programmed certain ways, we just identify anything that's outside of the Christian context as demonic. And I'm from the South. I grew up in a Southern place, churches everywhere, really like the Bible Belt. Really interesting conversation. So please go watch that video in full if you haven't already. But yeah, so of course, so the conversation was centered around the Black church, and it's not necessarily. I think it's more so speaking about the harm that Christianity has done to Black people, and how the Black church kind of continues to follow down that path without really like analyzing and understanding, the context and the difficult things that has happened under the context of Christianity, and with the Black church and within the Black community. So what I really love is how they get into the context of race and religion, because there's no way that in this time, this point, with so much exposure to different cultures and different identities, that we still have a certain functionality in regards when it comes to spiritual beliefs. And there's no way to separate race from that for Black people. Like, it's literally, we came here and we adapted spiritual practices, which I think a lot of what has transpired is, I think, like the essence of Christianity and the spirituality had the intentions of, doing what it's supposed to do. Right. But when we blend that with the American context and slavery in our historical narrative, it's so there's a lot of affliction that happens with that, because you can't just look at what our historical context has been in America. Slavery, Jim Crow, just straight terror and abuse for centuries, and then not connect that to our passiveness when it comes to white terrorism. So I'm trying not to be too in my head. I really just want to kind of have like a conversation and discuss the video, but I think it was somewhat heading towards a productive conversation for us to have. So even just being online, I just kind of still find it baffling how many of us still just kind of like reject the notion that there are other spiritual ways of doing things, and how demonizing them, this creates a disservice to ourselves not understanding, the ways that we, practice spirituality prior to that has really done a disservice to us, because when we don't have the answers that Christianity was supposed to give us, then we, things go disarray with us eternally, and we, do things, or things get miscommunicated, and the church has, kind of, for the most part, just really adapted this philosophy of supremacy, of white supremacy and white culture, that we again just have not yet dissected how we do that to our own disservice. And whew, this is a really long and thorough video. So, has the black church, been significant? Like, absolutely. Like, in the grander scheme of things, the black church has been significant. But I think that we can attribute that more towards the persons, and especially black women, who shape that narrative and that culture. And a lot has been shaped culturally with the black church, but I think also we don't realize the damage that it has caused, and we don't want to speak on the damage because the black church is supposed to be untouchable, this holy, Mecca and this holy ground. And and then it's also talked about Christianity globally, and a lot of people had this argument that, oh, well, Christianity was in Africa before it came. A lot of everything was in, I want to say, just about in Africa before we came over. But I think we also miss out on how that got there. How did that happen? And then you still continue to disregard the spiritual beliefs that a lot of the people there practice, right? Just because it was there does not mean like that was it. People still have their own spiritual, cultural, African-centered ideology that they practice and still practice. And so you continue to, again, just keep furthering this narrative and keep pushing this narrative. You can continue to disregard, how people dealt with spirituality in the African context. And then, like, people are leaving the church, and, I think people are looking for like real practical like solutions to like spirituality. And again, like I think like what Christianity, the religion, a lot of things have just been misinterpreted and misconstrued, and the way that things have explained to us don't really interact with us in a realistic sense that we can apply these and get to our really internal source of happiness. Ooh, so again, I think it's not to demonize like the black church, but there's definitely a conversation that needs to be had about like how it continues to operate in this kind of oppressive sense, in this oppressive manner that is a direct correlation between slavery and white supremacy. And yeah, I'm really glad that they had this conversation, and we're actually able to talk about in the sense that black people are primarily affected by this. Like look at and even exposure to other cultures and things like that. Black people are the most spiritual people in America, but we continue to have the worst experience in America, and we cannot continue to like negate the fact that we have a religion. We have been given a religion that keeps us in this like this passive state, like, oh, everything is gonna be okay, oh, everything is gonna be all right. Are we sure with if we have this, if we are existing in this oppressive regime? And no, not all black people who practice Christianity or spirituality were passive beings, but that's the overall story that we've been fed, and we are to take the oppression. We are to just absorb it and just deal with it. Like, that's horrible. That's horrible. It's done a number on us. It's done a number on Black families. It's done a number on just us as individual beings, period. So I think it's really high time for us to discuss this. So my feeling in regards to the conversation, they did kind of get like a tit for tat and like, kind of like this battle, and things got heated, but it really, I can understand the passion that comes about when you are really trying to explain to people, even though their intentions are good, how that literally continues to play a part in our oppression. The gentleman, I can't recall his name, it was the guy with I don't know if they showed his name. I think it was, they have all the names listed, but it's the gentleman in the black, white, and gold top. And he's doing a lot of the talking. And people's like, oh, he's getting upset. And but isn't it, I understand his frustration, because isn't it exhausting until this day how we just have this like lackadaisical, just approach to how these things have affected Black people on a very disruptive scale. Like, this stuff has effed us up. I don't think we understand that it has effed us up. And I think like remaining in this state of, Jesus, 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 that really has played like a big part in our cognitive, like, and not to call these people stupid by any means, I'm not saying it at all, but it just keeps us so passive in the state of oppression. And it's also just like the factual sense. He made the statement that you, the Black woman, the other Black lady he was talking to, who's a Christian, he was telling her, like, you predate all forms of religion. Like, you predate all of these things. And I think it's really high time for Black women especially to wake up and realize and understand who we are and the power that we possess, and our existence, and how we are the source to a lot of things. Trying to get Black women to wake up and understand that it's such like a hill, like it's just really a hill to climb. And you have to think about why that is, because if Black women just really understood and knew their power, they would also understand why it's such a fight to kind of just keep us oppressed and in this state of just, like, if Black women were to just really wake up and just realize who and understand who we are and the power that we possess, how we would just change, so much would just change, like overnight, I would say. I think it's here. I think the time is approaching. I think Black women are waking up, and it might take a little while longer for our men to catch up, but it starts with us, essentially. And trying to get this woman to understand, like, you predate all of those things. And not to again dismiss religions. I think it's time that we actually start looking at these in a context, and looking at them in the context of African spirituality, how they intertwine, and how a lot of it, some of it has just been used as oppressive tools. You predate all of that stuff. You predate everything. And trying to get this woman to acknowledge and just understand this. I think if we just really have to start having these conversations, and again, I think when Black Christians just at least start to acknowledge, like, okay, we need to start like actually examining these things, because the essence of the Christianity and in any other Abrahamic religions, they all kind of like have the same similar story with different characters. But it's time for us to start dissecting these things and see, like, what a lot of what we have, embedded into Christianity was a lot of African spiritual traditions we carried over with us, but they got translated into Christianity. And then, because we needed some type of hope, some type of something to hold on to, we hold on to Christianity because it's like, that's been our saving grace. But was it? Was it the saving grace, or was it your African traditional spiritual practices that you brought along here with us that kept us? But because we had to practice in certain means of certain mechanisms, those things got translated into different ways. Is that the case? Okay. And if that is the case, I think that would then, lies the problem. They would have to acknowledge, like, oh, like, I am an African, individual with an African, background, and what African spirituality really is more involved in my life than I have been led on to believe. So I think it's a great conversation. Please go watch it. I will also link it. And some of the stuff, I think it kind of, again, just kind of spills into that, tit for tat stuff. But I think some of it you can really just kind of get to the meat and to the heart of what's trying to be communicated. And if you want to, come back and discuss it and talk about it in the comments, I would love to do that. And share your thoughts and opinions if you watched it already. But anywho, I will see you later. Thank you so much for watching. I am Mocha Mazel with Manifesting and Healing for Black People, where we are breaking down the spiritual, historical, the biblical, and the metaphysical. Okay, so see you later. Have a wonderful day. Bye.